Hare Krishna. Excuse me, my voice is suffering from a little stress. It's not a major problem. I might croak a little bit in the middle. So our subject matter is stress management from the perception of Bhagavad Gita, and especially for doctors. You're all doctors, is it? Or training doctors? Internship? Like that. Now, as you know much better than me, stress seems to be largely a modern problem. At least there are more problems being caused by stress in the modern age than up until recent times. The modern age really started hitting India, I would guess, about 10 or 15 years ago. Up to that time, the progress or regress, whatever you want to call it, the change was going on, but really in the last 10 or 15, probably since the satellite TV came, then things started going down more. Some people would say we made more progress, but at least from my perspective, things started going down more. And now, heart problems, it seems to be, one doctor was telling me that it seems to be, especially Indians, there seems to be some kind of genetic influence that Indians suffer from heart problems more. And stress, or problems caused by stress, is especially part of the modern age. There simply wasn't so much stress previously. And all other kinds of, we can say, modern disease, or diseases that are, or syndromes that are influenced by the modern age, mental syndromes, depression, hypertension, anxiety. I mean, I've known about these things since I was a kid because it was all around me where I grew up, just outside London. But I came to India first in 1976, and society was different then, and we didn't hear these words. Tension, depression, we didn't hear these words. Of course, I didn't speak Hindi at that time either, but generally you'll hear, there's so many words. I don't know Kannada, and many of you are not Kannada speaking anyway, but I know that in all Indian languages now there are many English words mixed up. That's why they talk about English, mixing up Hindi and English. So, light on karo. Is it Hindi or is it English? Light on karo. Is it English or is it? It's all mixed up. So like that, so many words have come in modern Hindi. So like this, there's this word tension. There is some Hindi word. What is that? Tawar or something. What's the word in Hindi? Shuddh Hindi, Urdu, whatever. We don't know. And tension. You hear people say, "Bahut tension lagte." So this word, it's just like you see there are some words which have come into Hindi, which there's only an English word or a foreign word because there's no equivalent. Hindi is originally coming from Sanskrit. So just like you won't find any word in Hindi for divorce. Now they've made up one Sanskrit word, Vivaha Viched, and they've imported the Urdu word talak. But originally there's no such word as divorce because there's no concept in the original Indian culture. So in the same way, tension, this is a common word now in Hindi, which you didn't hear 20 years ago. Because the way of life, it was much less intense. Nowadays people are living such an intense life. As doctors, if you have time to think about it, you can understand that you're leading a very intense life. The human body and brain was not designed by nature. Of course, we'll say God, and in your textbooks they won't say God, but we know it's God. They'll say designed by nature, by chance. It's contradictory actually. If you say everything is, the human body is designed by nature, how by chance? Designed by chance? Doesn't seem to make sense. Design means by a person. So, designed by God. The human body and brain is not designed for the kind of stress that modern society imposes on it, and especially for doctors, more than others. They're so busy making others healthy that they kill themselves in the process. Sorry, you, not they. So, all the young people, middle class in India now, practically from the age of 3, as soon as the mental functions start to get a little bit coordinated, then immediately, not kindergarten, pre-kindergarten. Kindergarten already means preschool, and then they have pre-kindergarten. So right from the very beginning, the idea, study, work hard, which that's all right, but it's tough. And especially medical students, as you know very well, it's a lot of pressure. You have to learn everything, at least a synopsis of how everything in the human body works and what to do when it goes wrong. So it's a huge syllabus and you have to cram it in. So it's a lot of stress. And then when you come to actually practice, it's a lot more stress because doctors, they're busy people. It's not a 9 to 5 job, it's a 0 to 24 job. And get some sleep in between if you can. So there's a lot of stress, and it's a very stressful atmosphere because you're around people all the time who are afraid they're going to die, and actually all of them do sooner or later, but they're afraid that we're going to die very soon. So there's a lot of stress, and people are putting all their hopes in you that, of course it depends which department you're in. If you're in cosmetic dentistry, there's not so much stress, but if you're in heart, there are so many different departments. Some are closer to the death line than others, but anyway, you're surrounded by people who, whatever it is, if they have a twisted ankle which isn't going to kill you, they also feel stress and distress. So the very nature of the job, it's very stressful. Plus, you're in an atmosphere surrounded by people who are very concerned about their bodies or about their relatives' bodies. And there's a lot of stress also, I would judge, or adjudge, not simply from the amount of work, but from the whole atmosphere within the medical profession, which is extremely competitive, as I have seen. That it seems to me that doctors are more concerned with building their reputations and their careers than actually getting people healthy, which is what they're supposed to be doing. Of course, if they don't get people healthy, then they won't build their reputation and career. But there's a lot of competition and who's going to be at the top of the ladder, and like that, heart surgeons are supposed to be, isn't it? They're supposed to be the creme de la creme of doctors. So there's a lot of the social factor, the prestige factor, that's very strong also. How much you're earning. So all this contributes to stress. And while you're treating others for stress, there's so many stress-related diseases, various psychopathic diseases. But while you're treating others for distress, you yourself are victims. So what to do? And what has this got to do with Bhagavad Gita anyway? Well, we find in Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna was a stress patient. He was highly stressed out. Why? Well, you could think that's quite natural that he was stressed out because he had to fight. And naturally it's a very tense situation. But then if we consider Arjuna, he was a fighter, he was trained for that. Just like you're trained doctors, so if you see someone's stomach half out or in an accident, there's all their head, half their brain is coming out, you don't become squeamish because you've seen it many times. For you, it's a daily occurrence. But for anyone else, for most people, if they see someone with all blood and horrible situation, then most people, it's a very distressing situation. But for a doctor, he says, all right, now what to do? He doesn't become disturbed. He sees it every day. So, okay, quick, give some anesthetic, stitches, whatever has to be done. So, just like a doctor doesn't become disturbed by seeing people who are injured, but he thinks, what I've got to do? What should I do under this circumstance? So in the same way, Arjuna, he wasn't disturbed actually so much by the prospect of fighting and killing, or he could be killed also. That's also there. It's a more dangerous profession than a doctor. So that was his profession. He was a professional killer, you could say. Not like a mafia man, but he was fighting for the sake of dharma. And he had done that many times. Of course, some people say the father of the nation, he promulgated ahimsa. But actually, absolute ahimsa is a good principle, we subscribe to that, but absolute ahimsa is impractical. If just like you're all doctors, and if you put a sign outside your door, outside your house, that I believe in ahimsa, if anyone comes to steal, we won't take any action, then for sure all the dacoits in town will have a big fight over who will get to your place first. They'll clean you out. So some violence is required at least to keep bad elements in control. Some years ago there was a police strike in some city, I can't remember, it was Atlanta or somewhere in America. And when the news came out that the police were on strike, looting broke out. Normally, law-abiding citizens went into the center of the town, bringing pickup trucks, smashed all the windows of the shops, and looted everything, because they knew the police are on strike. We can do whatever we like. So, the threat, violence, that means to curb bad citizens, or criminals, or at least the threat of it, some violence is required in society. Just like Pakistan attacked India 3 times, so if we're just, not 3 times, it's going on all the time. But if we are to say absolute non-violence, and say, well, thank you very much, we're now going to make a new capital of Pakistan, it's going to be called New Delhi. So this is what will happen. So some violence is required. Just like doctors are also engaged in violence. If there's a big boil, I'm pointing here because I had one, I've still got the scar, huge abscess. It was like this whole arm was so swollen. So eventually it had to be lanced. So the doctor is putting a knife in you. So after it's finished, you say, thank you very much, doctor. Is that very sane? Someone sticks a knife in you and you say, thank you very much. If a criminal sticks a knife in you, then you won't say thank you. But if the doctor does, he does in a manner that is beneficial. So Arjuna had to fight. It's a stressful thing to do, but it wasn't the first time he fought. He was a seasoned fighter. He'd fought so many times. And actually he'd always been successful. So he wasn't afraid of losing either. What Arjuna was afraid of was adharma. Performing activities that would be against the principles of dharma. That he was afraid of. He was afraid of, on one side, fighting with and killing his gurus. Gurus on the other party were, of course, Bhishma Dev, Dronacharya, Ashvatthama, Guru Putra is also considered equal to Guru, Shalya. These were prominent of the gurus on the party of the Kauravas. So he was afraid of the adharma of fighting with and killing his gurus, and he was afraid of the adharma that would ensue if in the battles so many men would be killed, all the Kshatriyas would be killed, and then women would be unprotected. And as a result, unscrupulous men would take advantage of them, and the whole society would be polluted by Varna Sankara, or unwanted children. So Arjuna, he was feeling great distress, not from the prospect of fighting, and not from the prospect of dying, but from the prospect of doing wrong. Now, I don't know if you have time in your profession, but I see. No, I'm not talking about time for this lecture, but during the course of your daily work, I know that doctors in India especially are extremely hectic. But where I'm from in England, so I'm told, I have still some contacts there, some friends, GPs, general practitioners, who they say that a lot of the people that come to them, they don't really have any physical problem, but they come to unload their problems. They come to talk to the doctor because the doctor has a vow of confidentiality. So they come and they tell so many things. And so many times the doctors are telling me that people just come, they just need someone to talk to. And because many people, they're feeling very dissatisfied within themselves. Although to everyone else they appear to be a successful person, going ahead in their career, but inside they feel very bad about themselves. That I'm cheating people, maybe I'm cheating my wife by running off with I'm having an affair with my secretary, something like this. Or my children don't know, but I'm watching pornographic movies. So many things. And people, they feel very bad about themselves. And this creates stress, especially in the modern age. There's a lot of propaganda and there's a lot of opportunity to do things which any decent person wouldn't want to do. Just like on the current Outlook magazine, the cover story is about adultery. And it's especially saying how women, married women, in India, I didn't look at the inside, I didn't want to, because it's not a very pleasant subject. But the subject matter is how it's becoming more and more common for married women in India to play around with someone else's husband. And I guess it must work the other way too, because it takes two to tango. So there's some film recently also about this, promoting how one married woman is trying out someone else. So they're promoting this actually. It's putting the idea in people's head that, well, you could do this also. Why bother just sticking with your husband? You can have some fun with someone else. So then the idea is there, and maybe people do that, but there's some immediate pleasure, the pleasure of sex. But the mental burden that people have to bear, they feel guilty for the rest of their lives. And it causes so much pain to the whole family when the children find out. So this is a very common cause of internal stress. It's not simply work pressure. That's there. Work pressure is there. The pressure to perform, to show yourself as a very successful, whatever it may be, doctor, engineer, politician, to show yourself to be someone of repute. But a lot of stress comes also from internal disquiet. That internally people feel rotten about themselves. They're doing all the things which people expect them to do, but they feel very bad about themselves. Or otherwise, another very common thing that we're finding, in the Western countries especially, and definitely whatever is in the West is coming to India more and more and more. And practically India is going ahead of the West in all the things that the Westerners are doing. Just like in India, in the West we'll find so many people are vegetarians because they know eating meat is basically, it's not a very good equation for health. But in India, people think we should be westernized and they're eating more meat. But if they actually want to be westernized, then you should stop eating meat. But anyway, it's a funny country indeed. So anyway, in the West we find a lot of people, even the moral people, they're doing everything that they should be doing for their families and this and that. But internally they feel empty. That I'm doing what I should be doing, I've got a good job, I'm earning money, I'm looking after my family, but inside they feel empty. So this is also a cause of great mental disquiet, and especially there's often this middle-aged syndrome that people think, I'm 45 years old and what is there left in my life? I'm just growing old and what is there? What am I supposed to do? So these are various mental syndromes which are very common in modern society. But the point I wanted to make, that Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, his stress, it came from this internal disquiet which has become very prominent in the modern age. Until recently, at least in India, people seem to feel more or less content. Maybe too content, complacent. But even death, people, they took it in their stride, because everyone knows, everyone is brought up, at least previously with Bhagavad Gita, a very religious kind of society. And people know that, well, we all have to move on. Sorry, I didn't get your name. You're telling me, you're asking if I've been to Varanasi.
Yeah.
So,
I'm Dr. Saraswat.
Dr. Saraswat. So, once I was at Varanasi and I was sitting just to the side of the Smashan Ghat. So one man was sitting there, squatting there. So he asked me, where you're from? Usually people in India ask, where am I from? So, well, I'm from England. What are you doing? I'm chanting Hare Krishna. So he said, well, my mother used to chant Hare Krishna also. That's her. He pointed to a fire. He was talking very relaxed, no stress. She used to do mala every day, chanting Hare Krishna. He went like this. He had no distress. He knew. She was chanting Hare Krishna. He was just talking with me like this. Oh, how are you? Where are you feeling? How are you feeling? Where are you coming from? This is my mother. He wasn't distressed. My mother has passed on. She's gone to a good destination. And he himself, I could see, he's also a very relaxed personality. Because he had that basic understanding that comes from Indian culture, that Indian religious culture, or Vedic culture, that we've all come here according to our previous karma. We should act in a proper manner, that means according to the principles of Dharma. And if we do so, then God will look after us. Then where is the stress? Now, having said this much, I must confess to you, I also lead a very stressful life. I'm traveling a lot, which in itself is very stressful. And the irregulation and always rush, so many things you have to do before you move on to the next spot. And then I also, even though I'm a sannyasi, I have a very big family because I have many children, many disciples in different parts of the world. So I have to oversee them, and just like the patient's problems becomes your problem, so disciples' problems becomes my problem. And I have a lot of things to do, and there's never enough time to do it. Just like a doctor, there's never enough time to finish everything. So in this way, I have a very active life, and sometimes it becomes, actually, a lot of the time, it becomes rather stressful also. Stress is there because there's so many things to do and how to finish everything and which things to do, and some things you can't do because you can't do everything. How to fit it all in, and so many people expecting so many things, and how to satisfy so many people, and so it can be quite stressful. And especially I'm writing and I have to try to finish within a certain deadline before I go off on another tour. And so like this, I also lead a stressful